Chief Kwame stood among the most prosperous and highly regarded figures in his West African nation. His influence extended far beyond mere wealth, though his fortune was immense. He was the proprietor of a vast and sprawling corporation known simply as Kwame Group, boasting numerous successful divisions and operations spread throughout the country. Renowned for his considerable financial assets, he was perhaps even more celebrated and universally respected for his profound wisdom and sharp discernment in both business and life matters. Universal deference was accorded him wherever he went, people bowing their heads in respect. Yet, there existed one source of deep pride for Chief Kwame that genuinely surpassed all his vast financial assets and the accolades of the business world: his sole and beloved son, Adewale. Adewale had dedicated several years of his young life to pursuing rigorous medical studies overseas, a path chosen not for its potential wealth, but for the desire to heal and help others. He was inherently sharp-witted, possessing an intellect that promised great things, compassionate, with a heart open to the suffering of others, and exceptionally attractive, tall, with smooth, rich brown skin, naturally coiled hair that framed a handsome face and a warm, winning smile capable of instantly captivating the heart of any eligible woman who met his gaze. Every eligible young woman in the vicinity, drawn by his charm and potential, desired him, often openly displaying their admiration. But Adewale harbored no interest in superficial affection or fleeting infatuation. He longed for a genuine, deep connection, someone who would cherish him for his inherent qualities, the man beneath the expected status, not the reflection of his father's vast fortune. He sought love untainted by the gleam of money, a bond forged on mutual understanding and true character. On a particularly sun-drenched afternoon, the kind that painted the landscape in vibrant hues, Chief Kwame contacted his son by phone, his voice carrying the warmth of paternal affection and satisfaction. "My son," he declared, his voice resonating with deep, heartfelt satisfaction, "I am truly and immeasurably proud of your academic achievements and the man you have become." A brief pause, then, "Recall your promise to marry immediately following your graduation and return home." Adewale chuckled softly into the receiver, the sound light and reassuring. "Rest assured, father. I shall indeed seek a worthy companion and settle down upon my return home, just as I promised." "I have unwavering faith in your judgment, my son," Chief Kwame replied, the wisdom in his voice apparent even over the phone line. "However, I have information to impart, something I believe is worth considering. I have already identified 2 promising young women within my establishment. Both are industrious, well-educated, respectful in their demeanor, and undeniably comely in appearance. They are currently employed within various divisions of my corporation. I believe either would prove a suitable and fitting wife for you." Adewale's brow lifted slightly in surprise at the directness of his father's suggestion. Father," he responded, a hint of playful surprise in his tone, "you are already anticipating my choice and presenting options?" Chief Kwame chuckled heartily, the sound a warm rumble. "I am not imposing my will upon you, Adewale, far from it. I am merely offering guidance, a starting point based on my observations and experience. You retain the absolute freedom to choose as your heart wishes, but at least consider meeting and getting to know these individuals I have observed." "Understood, father," Adewale responded, a sense of intrigue beginning to stir within him. "Allow me to return home first, and then we can explore these possibilities." Yet, as he concluded the call and the line went dead, a peculiar and compelling notion began to take root in Adewale's sharp mind. What if, just for a time, he were to return home and present himself not as the wealthy heir, but as a man of truly modest means? Perhaps even as a simple security guard within his father's massive company. That approach, he reasoned, would quickly and unequivocally reveal who truly cared for him, unaware of his actual standing and the immense wealth that awaited him. He smiled to himself, a slow, knowing smile, nodding his head in quiet affirmation. Yes, that strategy is optimal, the best course of action to discern genuine affection. I desire authentic love, a bond built on mutual respect and affection for the person, not a fleeting affection that would undoubtedly dissipate the moment perceived resources dwindled. The subsequent day at the workplace, Chief Kwame occupied his imposing, comfortable leather chair, the very picture of calm authority, awaiting patiently. His plan, a carefully considered paternal intervention, was conceived. Now was the moment to initiate it and set events in motion. He activated the internal communication system, connecting him directly to the administrative offices. "Request that Aminata be asked to come to my office," he instructed the voice on the other end. Moments later, a knock sounded, and Aminata entered, radiating a quiet composure. "Good morning, sir," she greeted with her customary, genuinely cordial smile, her eyes clear and respectful. "Good morning, Aminata. Please do take a seat," Chief Kwame replied, gesturing towards a chair opposite his desk. Aminata seated herself gracefully, her mind quietly pondering the reason for this unexpected meeting with the chief himself. Chief Kwame leaned forward slightly, his expression serious yet kind. "I wish to convey something of significant importance to you, Aminata," he commenced, his voice low and thoughtful. "My son, Adewale, is nearing the completion of his medical studies abroad and is expected to return to our nation shortly, having successfully finished his rigorous program." Aminata smiled warmly, genuinely pleased by the news. "Marvelous, sir. Congratulations to you and your son." "Thank you, my dear," Chief Kwame said, acknowledging her well wishes. "Now, pay close attention to what I am about to tell you. I have observed you closely for some time now, Aminata. You are respectful in your interactions, well-educated, inherently kind, and exceptionally diligent in your work." Aminata gazed bashfully at the floor, a faint blush coloring her cheeks at the unexpected praise. "Based on my observations, I believe you possess the inherent qualities and character that would make you a good and supportive wife for my son," he continued, stating his assessment directly but gently. "I summoned you to my office not to compel or pressure you in any way, but because I desire for you to simply be your authentic, wonderful self upon his arrival. Should his heart, in his own time and through his own judgment, select you as his companion, I would be exceedingly pleased and proud." Aminata remained silent for a brief interval, absorbing the weight and surprise of his words. Then she smiled, a genuine, thoughtful expression. "I comprehend completely, sir, and I am deeply grateful for your kind consideration and your belief in me. You may depart now, Aminata," Chief Kwame stated gently, signaling the end of the meeting. Aminata rose from the chair. "Thank you, sir, for your time and confidence." She exited the office, her steps light, still absorbing the magnitude of the surprising communication she had just received. Not long afterward, another figure entered the office, moving with distinct self-assurance and an air of confidence. She offered a greeting that was polite, yet tinged with a certain expectation. "Good morning, sir." "Good morning, Chinyere. Please be seated," Chief Kwame responded, his expression carefully neutral. Chinyere sat, her posture erect, awaiting his purpose. "I wish to share something special with you today, Chinyere," Chief Kwame began, his voice even. "My son, Adewale, will soon graduate from his medical school abroad and will be returning home to join us." Chinyere's eyes brightened perceptibly, a flicker of keen interest igniting in them. "Oh, that is truly wonderful news, sir," she responded, her tone instantly becoming more effusive. Chief Kwame offered a faint, measured smile. "Indeed, and I have had my attention focused on you for some time now. Chinyere, you are attractive, intelligent, hardworking, and carry yourself with a certain poise and confidence." Chinyere smiled broadly, a sense of accomplishment and validation swelling within her. "Based on these observations, I believe you might be a suitable match for my son, a fitting companion for him. Thus, I called upon you to apprise you of his imminent arrival. He will be present before long. Merely be yourself. Present your qualities openly. If he finds you agreeable and his judgment leads him to you, I will be entirely content with his choice." Chinyere rose briskly from her seat, her movements quick and decisive. "Thank you immensely for this opportunity, sir. I pledge to do you proud and exceed your expectations." "Excellent," Chief Kwame nodded, acknowledging her promise. "You may go now." As Chinyere exited the office, her thoughts soared with ambitious anticipation. So, the prospect of becoming the wife of a wealthy and influential man, the heir to the Kwame Group, finally looms large. I must now ensure I am impeccably presented, flawlessly dressed, and utterly captivating every single day. 2 weeks subsequently, the day finally arrived. Adewale finally arrived back in his homeland. Chief Kwame awaited him personally at the air terminal with open arms and a heart overflowing with anticipation. The instant he sighted his son emerging from the arrival's gate, he enveloped him in a strong, heartfelt embrace, a gesture of profound paternal love and relief. "My son," he exclaimed joyfully, his voice thick with emotion, "you are finally here, returned safely to us." Adewale laughed, a sound of genuine happiness. "Yes, father. I have returned for good, my studies are complete, and I am ready to begin my life here." That evening, following a substantial and celebratory welcoming repast at the family residence, a meal filled with laughter and recounting of experiences, Adewale sat with his father in the comfortable reception area, the day's journey behind him. Chief Kwame regarded him, his eyes full of warmth. "Adewale," he said, bringing up the earlier topic, "I have already conversed with the 2 young women I mentioned to you, as agreed. Their names are Aminata and Chinyere. I addressed them separately, sharing my thoughts and their suitability, and both have indicated their willingness to meet you." Adewale raised an eyebrow slightly, a hint of amusement in his expression. "Just like that, father?" They readily agreed. "Precisely," his father smiled, a knowing glint in his eye. "They are both eager for the possibility. They are educated, industrious, and attractive young women. I have observed their character and work ethic for many years within the company." Adewale leaned back slightly in his chair, rubbing his chin thoughtfully, considering his father's words and the plan formulating in his own mind. Then, he articulated something that caused Chief Kwame to pause and regard him with surprise. "Father, I do not wish to reveal my true affluence to them immediately. I intend to impersonate a man of significantly more modest means, perhaps even presenting myself as a security guard within your company's structure." Chief Kwame sat upright in his chair, his earlier relaxed posture vanishing. "What did you just propose, Adewale?" he asked, seeking clarification. "I am quite serious, father," Adewale affirmed, his expression resolute. "If I appear wealthy or highly educated from the outset, their interest might stem solely from the money, from the perceived status and comfort my position could offer. I desire, above all, to ascertain who genuinely cares for me, for the person I am, without any knowledge of my true standing or potential." Chief Kwame laughed for a prolonged period, a deep, rumbling sound of appreciation for his son's unconventional approach. "You resemble me greatly in my younger, more adventurous years, my son. But are you absolutely certain you wish to undertake this potentially complicated charade?" "Yes, father." Adewale nodded emphatically, his determination clear. "Provide me with a standard security uniform, one that is inconspicuous. Let me reside in the staff accommodation, the same quarters as other workers. And assign me to work the gate at the company entrance. I wish to commence humbly, observe them closely in their natural environment, and discern who possesses a sincere and genuine heart." Chief Kwame smiled broadly, a smile radiating paternal pride and approval. "You are indeed perceptive and wise beyond your years, my son. A true reflection of careful thought. I shall make all the necessary arrangements discreetly. But remember, irrespective of how challenging or tempting the situation becomes, you must not expose your true identity until the opportune moment." Adewale grinned, the prospect of the test exciting him. "Have no concern whatsoever, father. This promises to be a most engaging and revealing endeavor." By the following morning, as the sun began to ascend, Adewale was already attired in a faded blue security uniform, a simple cap pulled low, and utilitarian sandals on his feet. He carried a broom and a container of water, tools befitting his assumed role. He was, to all intents and purposes, virtually unrecognizable as the wealthy heir. He appeared as any ordinary, hardworking security personnel. The employees streamed past him, hurrying towards their workstations, without even affording a second glance at his face, their minds focused on their day ahead. Save for one individual, that is, Aminata. She offered him a genuine smile and a polite greeting as she passed. "Good morning, officer," she said softly, her voice kind. Adewale returned the smile, a warmth spreading through him. "Good morning, madam," he replied respectfully, acknowledging her courtesy. Chinyere, conversely, swept past him with an air of dismissiveness, as if he were entirely invisible, a mere fixture of the entrance landscape. She did not afford him even a fleeting, cursory look, her gaze fixed forward, perhaps already anticipating the day's important events. Adewale chuckled inwardly, a private amusement bubbling up. This, he thought, promises to be quite intriguing indeed. Just a few days subsequently, subtle but significant transformations began to manifest within the bustling environment of Kwame Group. Chinyere now navigated the workplace with an air of someone who perceived herself as royalty, already destined for a higher station. Her expensive footwear clicked audibly and purposefully on the polished floors of the corridors. Her carefully selected fragrances permeated every space she entered, announcing her presence, and her bearing was consistently elevated, akin to a proud, preening peacock displaying its plumage. She even began behaving as though she were already formally espoused to the wealthy man's son, the future madam of the company. One afternoon during the midday respite, she conversed animatedly with two close acquaintances in the staff canteen, the hub of workplace gossip. Crossing her legs languidly, she declared loudly, ensuring she was overheard, "Certain individuals within this establishment would do well to learn how to address me with the appropriate due respect and deference. Quite soon, I shall be the daughter-in-law of the principal, the future mistress of this domain." Her friends gasped theatrically and applauded her pronouncement, their eyes wide with a mixture of envy and admiration. "Are you truly serious, Chinyere? Has it been decided?" Chinyere smiled with deep self-satisfaction, basking in their reaction. "Naturally," she responded, confirming her claims. "Chief Kwame himself has spoken to me directly about the prospect. It is merely a matter of time, an inevitable progression, before his son places a ring upon this very finger," she continued, gesturing to her hand with a flourish. "And upon my forthcoming marriage, I shall instruct my husband to dismiss certain employees here, particularly those who engage in idle chatter, malicious gossip, and disrespectful behavior behind my back." Her friends laughed nervously, unsure how seriously to take her words, unaware of her absolute and genuine seriousness in her intentions. She even began issuing directives to junior staff, speaking with the tone of someone who already held a managerial post, despite her actual position. One morning, she traversed the reception area and observed Aminata engaged in conversation with another staff member. A simple, friendly exchange. Chinyere frowned, a look of proprietary annoyance crossing her face, and approached her with a deliberate stride. "Aminata, may I confer with you for a private moment?" she inquired in a distinctly supercilious and condescending tone, her voice carrying an implicit challenge. Aminata smiled gently, her composure unwavering. "Certainly, Chinyere. What can I do for you?" They withdrew to a secluded area outdoors, away from the eavesdropping ears of their colleagues. Chinyere folded her arms across her chest, a gesture of defiance and superiority, and stated bluntly, "Aminata, I suggest you cease expending such obvious effort in attempting to gain favor. You and I both recognize the reality of the situation. You are simply not my competitor in this matter." Aminata appeared genuinely perplexed by the aggressive assertion. "What precisely do you imply, Chinyere?" she asked calmly, seeking clarification. Chinyere rolled her eyes dramatically, impatient with what she perceived as feigned innocence. "Come now, abandon the pretense and unnecessary humility. We are both acutely aware Chief Kwame spoke to us about his son. But let us be frank and acknowledge the obvious truth, Aminata. You are simply not in my league. I possess more sophistication, I am undeniably more attractive, and I dress with far greater elegance and style. You cannot realistically vie with me for the attention of a man of that caliber." Aminata blinked slowly, her expression thoughtful, and gently shook her head. "I am truly uncertain of what you are referring to, Chinyere," she stated calmly, her voice steady. "I am not engaged in any form of competition with you. You may pursue him, if that is your desire and ambition." Chinyere scoffed loudly, a sound of satisfied arrogance. "Good. It appears you are finally speaking reasonably and accepting the inevitable. However, there is one further point that merits consideration," Aminata added, her gaze steady. "How can you possibly be in contention or competition over a man who has not even made his appearance here yet? We are completely unaware if he will favor you, or perhaps myself, or even someone else entirely different. So, What is the true purpose of this overt display of rivalry? Chinyer emitted a sharp intake of breath, indignant at the challenge to her perceived status. He will most certainly favor me dash. Why would he not? I embody everything that a wealthy and successful man seeks in a partner: beauty, intelligence, ambition. Aminata smiled courteously, her expression serene. Very well, then, Chinyer. If you are so certain, I sincerely wish you success in your pursuit. She turned and quietly walked away, leaving Chinyer standing alone, seething with indignation and a burning sense of rivalry. Concurrently, Adewale, still faithfully performing his duties in his security attire, observed the entire spectacle unfolding from a discreet distance. He swept the grounds deliberately, his movements calm, a quiet smile playing on his lips whenever Chinyer passed, ostentatiously displaying herself and her perceived superiority. He noted her condescension towards other staff members, the imperious tone she used with the custodians responsible for maintaining the premises, and her consistent failure to even acknowledge his presence, treating him as if he were part of the inanimate scenery. Aminata, conversely, continued her simple routine of greeting him each morning with genuine warmth. She had even once, during a particularly sweltering afternoon, brought him a container of chilled water, a small act of kindness that resonated deeply. Here, she said with a kind smile, extending the container. The heat is considerable today, officer. You require this to stay hydrated and cool. Adewale accepted it gratefully and smiled in return, genuinely touched by the gesture. My sincere and heartfelt thanks, madam. That is very thoughtful of you. It is no trouble at all, she responded simply. You perform your duties commendably, keeping us all safe. She then moved on, continuing with her day. Adewale regarded the container of water in his hand, a small, tangible representation of her kindness, and smiled once more. This individual, he thought, possesses a truly compassionate and humble spirit. One Friday morning, Chinyer entered the workplace, not just walking, but tempestuously, her footsteps loud and attention-grabbing, her countenance radiant with self-importance. She wore a glittering crimson gown, prominent golden adornments that flashed in the light, and heavy, carefully applied cosmetics designed to make a statement. She proceeded directly to the personnel division, the administrative heart of the office, and stood dramatically at the entrance with her hands planted firmly on her hips. Attention, everyone, she announced loudly, her voice ringing through the office space. A sudden hush fell over the entire area, conversations ceasing abruptly. Some staff members lifted their gaze from their workstations, peering over partitions. Others leaned out from behind their computer screens, curiosity piqued. Even the custodians, pausing their tasks, turned to see what the commotion was about. Chinyer cleared her throat dramatically, savoring the sudden attention. I have a most important announcement to deliver to you all, she declared with palpable pride, her voice carrying across the room. For those perhaps regrettably unaware, I shall shortly become the daughter-in-law of Chief Kwame, the principal of this esteemed company. A brief, stunned silence, then murmurs rippled through the crowd. Indeed, she emphasized, confirming her claim, the one and only Chief Kwame. People exchanged bewildered looks, uncertainty clouding their faces. She continued, her voice taking on a more stern, admonishing tone. Therefore, if you are aware of having engaged in malicious gossip or disrespectful chatter concerning me, be advised that your tenure within this company is nearing its conclusion. You are on notice. Once I am formally wed to his son, the true heir, she declared with chilling certainty, I shall personally ensure that all undesirable elements, those who breed negativity and discord, are removed from this establishment. Jaws dropped throughout the office in sheer astonishment at her brazenness. Aminata, who had been quietly engrossed in composing her periodic report, paused her work and looked up, her expression calm but attentive. Chinyer's gaze fell upon her, and she turned deliberately towards Aminata. And Aminata, she stated, her voice laced with condescension, I trust you have finally reconciled yourself with the undeniable truth of the situation. I am the one destined for this position, the one chosen. Kindly desist from following me about or attempting to solicit the role through false humility. It is rather undignified and frankly, transparent. Aminata slowly rose from her chair, maintaining her composure despite the public humiliation. Chinyere, she responded, her voice quiet but firm. I fail utterly to understand why you persistently invoke my name in your pronouncements. I am neither pursuing you nor competing with you for anything. Please conduct yourself with appropriate decorum and respect. Chinyere laughed loudly, a harsh, unpleasant sound, clapping her hands together in mock amusement. Oh, poor Aminata, still clinging to pretense and denial. Do not fret excessively. You will undoubtedly receive an invitation to the nuptials, a chance to witness true destiny unfold. You may even potentially serve as a bridesmaid, provided you behave appropriately and cease your subtle machinations. Everyone in the office remained silent, unsure of how to respond to this unprecedented display of arrogance and assumption. Chinyere departed with a self-satisfied, regal air, leaving behind a stunned silence and lingering tension. The following day at the workplace, Chinyere arrived at the company entrance in her characteristic flamboyant manner, her heels tapping loudly on the paved walkway, her handbag swaying purposefully, her countenance brimming with an almost palpable arrogance. As she neared the entrance, Adewale, who was on duty that morning in his neat, unassuming security uniform, stepped forward respectfully, as was his duty, and opened the gate for her. "Good morning, madam," he greeted with a polite inclination of his head, performing his role professionally. Chinyere halted abruptly and regarded him with undisguised disdain, her expression freezing into a look of contempt. "Are you completely deranged?" she snapped, her voice sharp and accusatory. "Never again presume to address me with that common, fetid mouth of yours." Adewale blinked, visibly taken aback by the unexpected and harsh verbal assault. "What transgression have I committed, madam?" he asked, genuinely confused by her outburst. "Did I solicit a greeting from you, you insignificant man?" she demanded, her voice escalating in volume and fury. "You, this impoverished security attendant, a mere gatekeeper. Cease attempting to greet me henceforth. Keep your pitiable salutations and your common presence to yourself. They are beneath my notice." Adewale's placid expression, carefully maintained for his role, gradually shifted. The conveneer began to crack. He inhaled deeply, gathering his composure, then spoke, his voice low but carrying a newfound gravity. "You know something, madam? You are utterly consumed by your own self-importance and misplaced arrogance. Solely because the principal, Chief Kwame, intimated that his son might wed you, you have immediately begun acting as though you are already his wife, the madam of this entire establishment. How utterly lacking in dignity and proper conduct can one person possibly be?" Chinyere gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, utterly shocked by the security guard's audacity. "What incredible audacity did you just display, addressing me in such a manner?" "You heard me quite clearly," Adewale stated with quiet resolve, his gaze steady. "You denigrate others around you. You stride about this place as if you are already married to a man you have never even met. Tell me, truthfully, are you even aware of his actual appearance? Do you possess his direct contact information? Have you ever, even once, communicated with him directly?" Chinyere's mouth parted in stunned silence, but no coherent words emerged. She felt both intensely humiliated by his accurate assessment and simultaneously enraged by his defiance. "How dare you speak to me like that?" she finally shrieked, finding her voice, her face contorted with fury. "You lowly, impertinent individual. I shall personally ensure your immediate dismissal from this position. The principal must be apprised of this insolence today, without delay." Adewale merely shrugged, seemingly unconcerned by her threat. "That, madam, is of no consequence whatsoever to me." Chinyere's face contorted further, her fury reaching a boiling point. "You will deeply regret this insolence, you wretched man. If the principal, for some inexplicable reason, does not discharge you today, I shall personally instruct my future husband, his son, to do so the very moment we are united in marriage and I hold influence." Adewale laughed, a short, sharp sound of genuine amusement at her assumption. "That, madam, is contingent upon him actually selecting you in the first instance, isn't it?" Chinyere erupted, losing all control. "Worthless wretch. Just like your imbecilic father and the foolish, pathetic mother who gave birth to a creature like you." Adewale's smile vanished instantly. That particular remark, a cruel and deeply personal attack on his parents, struck deeply, piercing through his carefully constructed facade. However, instead of reacting impulsively or with anger, he stood tall, regarding her with quiet, intense indignation, and declared, his voice low and firm, "You have now, unequivocally and without doubt, revealed your true, ugly nature for all to see." He then turned and departed from his post, walking away from the confrontation. Chinyer, simmering with uncontained rage like boiling liquid, marched directly into the edifice, her heels clicking furiously on the floor, and abruptly entered Chief Kwame's office without knocking, her composure completely shattered. "Chief, you must dismiss that utterly incompetent and disrespectful security man immediately," she exclaimed, her voice shrill and trembling with fury. Chief Kwame slowly lifted his head from his work surface, surprised by her sudden, dramatic entrance and obvious distress. "Compose yourself, Chinyer," he said calmly, gesturing for her to sit. "What precisely is the source of this extraordinary agitation?" Chinyer began to rail, pouring out her version of events. "He insulted me, sir. He showed me utter disrespect, defying my authority. He even scoffed at me and my intended spouse, your son," he declared, with astonishing insolence. "You are foolish, and my mother is a fool." Chief Kwame blinked, astonished by the alleged statement. He claimed, "I am foolish, Chinyer?" he asked, seeking clarification of the insult's target. Chinyer stammered, realizing her verbal misstep and the implications of her accusation. No, not yourself, sir. Of course not. I meant," he said, "his father is foolish. Yes, that was my intended meaning. But that individual is excessively arrogant and insubordinate for someone of his lowly station." Chief Kwame maintained a thoughtful silence for a moment, his gaze steady on her. Then he regarded her and stated calmly, his voice unwavering, "Chinyer, I regret to inform you, but I cannot comply with your demand for his dismissal." Chinyer stood rigid, utterly stunned by his refusal. "Sir, what precisely do you mean? Why would you refuse to dismiss such an insolent employee?" Chief Kwame folded his hands calmly upon the table before him. "You would not comprehend the reasons fully, Chinyer. Adewale is a young man of exceptional character, inherently respectful, diligent, and remarkably composed under pressure. If he addressed you in such a manner, challenging your behavior, there must exist a valid and significant reason for his actions. I am intimately familiar with his character and integrity." Chinyer trembled with frustrated fury, unable to accept his defense of the guard. "But he subjected me to public insult. He was disrespectful." Nonetheless, Chief Kwame rejoined firmly, reiterating his decision, "I shall not terminate his employment. He remains a valuable employee." Chinyer appeared bewildered, unable to grasp the chief's position. "Are you shielding him, sir? Is it because he is perhaps your favored employee among the security staff?" Chief Kwame sighed, a sound of weariness at her lack of understanding. "This is not the matter at hand, Chinyer. I shall indeed confer with him myself regarding this incident, but I will not, under any circumstances, dismiss him based solely on your complaint." Chinyer emitted a loud, frustrated sound of displeasure and stormed out of the office, her departure as abrupt as her arrival. As she traversed the corridor, her mind raced with confusion and resentment. Why would Chief Kwame so vehemently champion a mere security attendant? She contemplated, unable to reconcile his defense with the guard's low status. What is so extraordinary or special about him that the chief would refuse my direct request? Meanwhile, back at his post at the entrance, Adewale stood quietly, contemplating the expanse above him, lost in thought. A heaviness resided in his heart, not due to Chinyer's insults themselves, but because her words and actions had so thoroughly unmasked her genuine, unpleasant disposition. She had slandered a person she did not even know and had even invoked curses upon his parents, including his deceased mother. What, he wondered sadly, would she have been like if she had been aware that he was, in fact, the principal son? He slowly shook his head, the reality of her character sinking in. That evening at the family residence, the air was more relaxed. Chief Kwame sat in the comfortable reception area, perusing a journal, when Adewale entered, still clad in his security uniform, having come directly from his post. He appeared fatigued from the day's duties, yet a wry smile graced his features. "Welcome, my son. Chief Kwame remarked, lowering the publication and looking up. How was your day's engagement in the theatrical production? Adewale settled onto the seating opposite his father and chuckled, acknowledging the description of his test. The day was indeed replete with dramatic incidents and revealing performances, father. Chief Kwame regarded him, a gentle seriousness in his tone. Adewale, have you not concluded this elaborate charade as yet? Surely you have seen enough? Adewale chuckled again, shaking his head. No, father. I have barely commenced the observational phase. The drama is just starting to unfold. Chief Kwame blinked, slightly surprised. You have barely commenced? But you have already witnessed so much. I find the unfolding drama highly diverting and incredibly instructive, Adewale responded, still laughing softly at the absurdity of the situation. It is akin to a complimentary theatrical performance provided daily. I do not even require refreshment during the show. His father also laughed, sharing in the amusement, then reclined more comfortably in his chair. So, how did today's particular performance unfold? What new revelations were there? Adewale shook his head, the smile fading as he recounted the day's events. Chinyere is truly something else entirely, father. That individual possesses an exceptional and almost unbelievable degree of insolence and entitlement. She converses and acts as though she possesses the entirety of existence and everyone within it. Are you aware, father, that she verbally abused both you and my departed mother today during her outburst? Chief Kwame's smile dissipated completely, replaced by a look of quiet displeasure. Yes, Adewale. I am fully aware of her behavior. She reported the incident to me. Adewale's eyes widened slightly in surprise. You possess this knowledge already? She came to you. Chief Kwame nodded slowly, confirming it. She presented herself in my office, demanding his dismissal, and uttered falsehoods directly to my face, attempting to manipulate the situation. She asserted, remarkably, that you insulted the progenitors of her intended spouse, referring to you as the guard. Can you conceive of such a brazen fabrication and attempt at deception? Adewale scoffed, shaking his head in disbelief. That individual is utterly devoid of any sense of shame or basic decency. She referred to me, your son, as a mere impoverished boy, a non-entity, declared me worthless, and asserted, quite confidently, that she would instruct her future spouse, meaning me, though she remains oblivious, to dismiss me the instant they are wed. Chief Kwame slowly shook his head, the situation both appalling and ironically humorous. And yet she remains completely oblivious that the very impoverished individual she is berating and attempting to have dismissed is the identical man, my son, she harbors aspirations of wedding and whose fortune she desires. Adewale laughed again, a mixture of amusement and resignation. Father, that is not even the most egregious element of her performance today. She actually stated, in her uncontrolled fury, my father is imbecilic, and my mother was a fool for giving birth to someone of my nature. Chief Kwame frowned deeply, the insult striking him. She articulated that specific phrase aloud. To your face? Indeed, Adewale nodded, confirming the exact words used. Her fury was so profound and uncontained that the insult simply escaped her lips involuntarily, a raw expression of her contempt and lack of breeding. Chief Kwame sighed deeply, a sound of profound disappointment. That individual clearly lacks proper upbringing and moral foundation, and I very nearly considered her as a potentially suitable spouse for my son, the heir to my legacy. Adewale shook his head, emphasizing the value of his test. I am profoundly grateful, Father, that you permitted me to pursue this course of action and test the waters myself. Candidly, this concealed identity experiment is proving remarkably instructive. I am now observing individuals for who they truly are at their core, stripped of the masks of expectation and social pretense. He returned to Chinyere's behavior. She betrayed me with blatant falsehoods to your face, Father. That individual stared directly into my eyes and fabricated truths about my words with astonishing ease. She is profoundly ill-mannered, disrespectful, and speaks with an air of entitlement, Adewale stated with earnestness, his voice serious. She regards others with obvious condescension, particularly those she perceives as lacking in financial means or social standing. Chief Kwame massaged his forehead slowly and sighed profoundly, the weight of the realization heavy upon him. I am profoundly disillusioned and disheartened. When I initially conversed with her on that day, she appeared composed, deferential, and respectful, the epitome of a suitable young woman. But now I perceive the deeply ingrained arrogance, the malevolence, and the manipulative nature lurking just beneath her carefully constructed surface. She is utterly unworthy of association with individuals who possess self-respect, dignity, or genuine integrity, Adewale declared with conviction. And the rich irony is that she remains completely oblivious that I, the worthless security attendant she has been berating and threatening, and the very man she has been boasting about marrying. Chief Kwame shook his head in disbelief at the sheer scale of her miscalculation. She actually asserted, to your face, that she would instruct her intended spouse to dismiss you. Chief Kwame recounted, still finding the level of arrogance astounding. Adewale chuckled, finding humor in the absurdity of her presumption. Indeed, father. She has already conceptually embraced marital status with me, in her own mind, and is now issuing threats and directives indiscriminately based on that imagined future authority. Father and son erupted in shared laughter, the tension of the day momentarily diffused by the sheer preposterousness of Chinyer's actions. Chief Kwame regarded his son with a countenance radiating deep paternal pride and affection. You are indeed sagacious, Adewale, a man of true insight. This evaluative exercise is already yielding invaluable results. At the very least, we are now definitively aware of her genuine disposition and true character. Adewale nodded, agreeing. But I must persist with this undertaking a little longer, father. I need to observe the full extent to which she will proceed with her machinations and assumptions. I also intend to observe Aminata with closer and more focused attention. That individual, from all appearances, possesses a genuinely commendable and kind heart. I too have observed it, Chief Kwame concurred, having noted Aminata's quiet dignity himself. She never engages in vociferous outbursts or displays of temper, never displays ostentation or arrogance, and consistently treats others with benevolence and respect, regardless of their perceived station. There is something truly distinctive and admirable about her character, father, Adewale added, reflecting on their limited interactions. She accords me, a mere security attendant in her eyes, genuine respect, even offering simple courtesies. She once offered me chilled water on a day of intense heat and even complimented my performance, something no other employee, certainly not Chinyer, has done. Chief Kwame smiled, a warm, knowing smile. That, my son, is the archetype of individual who ushers tranquility, peace, and genuine happiness into a household, into a life. Precisely, father, Adewale affirmed, the truth of his words resonating deeply within him. They remained in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of their shared understanding settling between them. Then Chief Kwame rose, signaling the end of their conversation. Very well, my son. The arena is yours to navigate. Continue your theatrical representation and gather your observations. But when the opportune moment finally arrives, the time to reveal your true identity, unveil yourself with the bearing and dignity befitting a monarch and the heir to this company. Adewale smiled, a confident and purposeful expression on his face. I shall, father. I will ensure the revelation is impactful. The subsequent day at the workplace, the ambience within the Kwame Group offices was notably strained and filled with an undercurrent of speculation. By the early hour, all employees had arrived and assumed their positions, performing their duties. Yet, murmurs circulated furtively throughout the various departments. An advisory had been discreetly disseminated early that morning from the Personnel Division, a formal directive. All personnel were directed to assemble in the main meeting hall punctually by a certain designated time. Chief Kwame was scheduled to make a significant and important announcement, the nature of which was entirely unknown. Individuals exchanged inquisitive glances with their colleagues and posed hushed inquiries to one another. Is someone facing dismissal after yesterday's drama? Is he conferring a major promotion upon someone deserving? Is he finally, after all this time, introducing his son to the staff? The answers remained unknown and subject to wild speculation among the workforce. Even Chinyer, whose agitation had somewhat subsided following the previous day's commotion and confrontation, occupied her workstation, her mind racing with possibilities. She leaned closer and whispered conspiratorially to a close confidant. "Perhaps, my dear friend, this marks the very day I shall be formally introduced to the entire company as the future spouse, the woman chosen by the chief for a son." Her friend giggled nervously, sharing her excitement and anticipation. "Let us await the outcome with eager hearts." Aminata, conversely, sat quietly at her workstation, diligently compiling her periodic report, focused entirely on her tasks. She remained outwardly undisturbed by the swirling rumors and speculation, her focus internal and calm. Punctually by the appointed time, the entire staff, from junior clerks to senior managers, congregated in the spacious, comfortably conditioned meeting hall, the usual lively atmosphere replaced by hushed anticipation. The elongated, gleaming glass table that dominated the room was encircled by a multitude of chairs, now occupied by the curious employees. Everyone sat quietly, their attention fixed intently towards the front of the hall, where a modest platform was situated. A few moments later, the main entrance doors opened deliberately. Chief Kwame entered, attired in his customary dignified traditional dress and distinctive cap. His walking staff gently resonated on the polished floor as he proceeded calmly towards the front of the hall, his presence commanding attention. All present rose in unison and offered a respectful greeting. "Good morning, sir," the chorus of voices sounded. He offered a gentle gesture of acknowledgement, a slight inclination of his head. "Good morning, my esteemed colleagues. Please be seated." Silence descended upon the room once more, thick with anticipation, as he commenced his address to the gathered staff. "I wish to express my sincere and heartfelt gratitude to all of you for your diligent efforts, your unwavering fidelity, and your profound commitment to this enterprise, the Kwame Group." Chief Kwame began, his voice clear and resonant. "For over 3 decades, I have personally cultivated this venture through persistent, often arduous effort, significant personal sacrifice, and earnest supplication. Today, because of that collective effort, we stand proudly as one of the foremost corporations in our nation, a testament to hard work and dedication." There was a modest, respectful round of applause from the staff, acknowledging his words and their role in the company's success. "However," he continued, his tone shifting slightly, signaling a change, "the time has arrived for me to relinquish my active, day-to-day role in the operations of this company and transition to a new phase of life." Gasps permeated the chamber, whispers rippling through the room as some staff members murmured inquiries regarding Chief Kwame stepping aside from leadership. Indeed, Chief Kwame confirmed with a gentle, reassuring smile, addressing their surprise. "I have officially retired from active duty. Commencing from this very day, I shall no longer be attending the office or overseeing daily operations. I intend to allocate more time to rest at home, spend time with my family, and enjoy the existence I have labored diligently to achieve through many years of hard work." Silence once again settled upon the room, the news of his retirement sinking in. "But sir, who will now assume responsibility and lead the company in your absence?" one of the divisional managers inquired cautiously, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Chief Kwame nodded, acknowledging the pertinent inquiry. "A valid and important question indeed. My son, Adewale, as many of you are aware, is undertaking advanced medical studies abroad. He will shortly graduate and return home to eventually assume his rightful place, but until that time, another individual will serve as the company's representative on my behalf, overseeing operations and guiding the company forward." People looked around the room at one another, appearing confused and uncertain as to who this designated representative might be. Chinyer's heart leaped with intense anticipation, her mind racing with possibilities. "Perhaps," she thought excitedly, "it is I. Perhaps he is poised to utter my name, to announce me as the chosen one, the interim head and future wife." Chief Kwame surveyed the room slowly, his gaze sweeping over the expectant faces, and smiled faintly. "Have no apprehension or concern," he stated calmly, reassuring the staff. "The individual assuming charge for the interim period has already been carefully selected and appointed. You will all be made aware of their identity in due course, very shortly. The person may, in fact, be more proximal and closer than you perceive or anticipate." He paused, letting his words resonate. Chinyer, emboldened by her hopes and beliefs, confidently raised her hand, unable to contain her eagerness. "Sir," she inquired, her voice eager, "if I may be permitted to ask, when precisely is your son, Adewale, anticipated to finally make his arrival and presence known?" Chief Kwame offered a faint, knowing smile, appreciating her eagerness, misplaced though it was. "Imminently, Chinyere. His arrival is expected very soon." Chinyere nodded with an air of self-assurance and quiet triumph, turning slightly to her associates with an expression that communicated, "You see, the moment is nigh. My destiny is unfolding." Yet, in the background, Aminata remained quietly seated at her place, still attentive, still composed, her posture reflecting inner calm. She made no attempt to attract attention or impress anyone. She was not even preoccupied with thoughts of Chief Kwame's son or his arrival. Her sole focus was on the tasks that awaited her back at her workstation, the reports she needed to complete. Chief Kwame raised his hand slightly, bringing the assembly to a close. "This assembly is now adjourned. Return to your assigned duties and resume your important work. However, I implore you all to maintain your commitment to hard work, integrity, and, most importantly, to treat one another with courtesy, respect, and kindness. This organization operates and thrives on principles of discipline, hard work, and humility, not on arrogance, dominance, or disrespectful behavior towards colleagues." As individuals rose from their chairs and prepared to depart the hall, Chinyere leaned closer to her friend and whispered conspiratorially, a triumphant gleam in her eye, "Observe closely, my friend. I shall be the principal's wife, madam of this place, very soon now. All these individuals, from managers to custodians, will be compelled to defer to my authority." Adewale, however, who stood unobtrusively by the main entrance doors as part of the security detail, his presence almost unnoticed by the departing crowd, overheard every syllable of her confident whisper. He maintained an impassive countenance, holding the entrance open for everyone to exit, performing his assigned duty. When Aminata passed, she offered him a polite smile, a small gesture of recognition and kindness. "Thank you, officer," she said softly. "You are most welcome, madam." Adewale replied gently, a genuine warmth in his voice only she could perceive. However, when Chinyere passed, she tossed her head disdainfully, avoiding his gaze entirely, and offered no acknowledgement whatsoever. She behaved as she always did, as though he were utterly invisible, a non-entity. Adewale turned slightly, a private, knowing smile playing on his lips as he watched her go. "The drama is just commencing," he murmured to himself, anticipating the further unfolding of his test. The following day at the workplace, the atmosphere at Kwame Group was uncommonly charged with expectancy. By an early hour, everyone had arrived and settled at their workstations, performing their routines. Yet, hushed conversations filled the air, anticipation thick enough to cut with a knife. A communication had been circulated earlier that morning from the personnel division, formal and official. All personnel were directed to report to the meeting hall by a specific time precisely, a summons that mirrored the previous day's directive. Chief Kwame was scheduled to make an important and highly anticipated announcement. People exchanged glances, their eyes wide with speculation, and posed questions in low tones. Was someone being dismissed today, perhaps as a result of yesterday's public displays? Was he finally announcing a significant promotion for a deserving manager? Was he finally introducing his son to the entire staff, putting an end to the speculation? No one possessed the definitive answer, and the uncertainty fueled the anticipation. Even Chinyere, whose demeanor had become slightly calmer, yet still expectant, after the previous day's events, sat at her workstation, her mind buzzing. She leaned closer to one of her confidants and whispered, barely audible, "Perhaps this, my dear, is truly the day I shall be formally presented to the entire company as the future spouse, the one chosen for the chief's heir." Her friend giggled nervously in response. "Let us simply await and observe what transpires." Aminata, conversely, sat quietly at her workstation, engrossed in preparing her weekly report, her focus unwavering. She remained unperturbed by the surrounding excitement and speculation, maintaining her calm demeanor. Punctually at the appointed time, as the clock struck the designated hour, the entire staff gathered once more in the large, comfortably air-conditioned meeting hall, filling the space with expectant bodies. The extensive glass table remained central, now encircled by the seated staff. Everyone sat in attentive silence, their gaze fixed upon the front of the hall, where the small platform was positioned. A few moments later, the main entrance opened, drawing all eyes. Chief Kwame entered, clad in his characteristic traditional dress and cap, his presence radiating calm authority. His walking staff tapped softly on the polished floor as he made his way to the front, each tap echoing slightly in the quiet hall. Everyone stood respectfully as he approached and offered greetings in unison. "Good morning, sir." The voices resonated. He gestured gently with his hand, acknowledging their greeting. "Good morning, my esteemed associates. Please be seated." Silence descended upon the room once more as he began to speak, his voice carrying clearly. "I wish, once again, to commend all of you for your diligent work, your unwavering fidelity, and your profound commitment to this corporation, the entity known as Kwame Group." Chief Kwame commenced, reiterating his praise. "For over 30 years now, I have personally nurtured and guided this enterprise through arduous effort, significant sacrifice, and fervent prayer. Today, because of that collective dedication, we are proudly recognized as one of the preeminent companies in our nation, a source of pride for us all." There was a brief round of modest, respectful applause from the gathered staff. "However," he continued, his tone shifting slightly, hinting at the imminent announcement, "the time has arrived for me to transition to a different phase in my life, a phase of deserved rest." Gasps rippled audibly through the room, a collective expression of surprise. Some staff members murmured inquiries about the chief stepping aside from his leadership role. Indeed, Chief Kwame confirmed with a gentle, reassuring smile, acknowledging their reaction. "I have officially withdrawn from active duty and leadership. Effective immediately, from this very day, I shall no longer be frequenting the office or overseeing daily operations. I shall be dedicating more time to rest and relaxation at home, spending cherished time with my family, and savoring the existence for which I have labored diligently for so many years." The room fell silent again, the news of his retirement absorbing into the minds of the staff. "But sir, who will now assume leadership and guide the company in your absence?" one of the divisional managers inquired cautiously. Speaking for the collective uncertainty, Chief Kwame nodded, confirming the pertinence of the question. "A pertinent and necessary question. My son, Adewale, as many of you are already aware, is undertaking advanced medical studies abroad, nearing completion. He will shortly graduate and return home, but until that period of his full integration, another individual will serve as the company's representative on my behalf, holding authority and guiding operations." People glanced around the room at one another, appearing confused as to the identity of this interim leader. Chinyear's heart surged with a renewed sense of hope and possibility, her earlier disappointment momentarily forgotten. "Perhaps it is I," she thought with heightened anticipation. "Perhaps he is on the very verge of announcing my name, declaring me the designated representative and his son's intended." Chief Kwame surveyed the room slowly, his gaze calm and assessing, and offered a faint, knowing smile. "Have no disquiet or apprehension," he stated, his voice reassuring. "The individual assuming interim leadership has already been carefully selected and appointed. You shall all become aware of their identity in due time, very soon. The person may, in fact, be nearer to you, more proximal, than you perceive or expect." He paused, allowing his words to create a sense of intrigue and anticipation. Chinyear, unable to contain her burning curiosity and ambition, confidently raised her hand once more. "Sir," she inquired, her voice eager and prominent, "if I may be permitted to ask, when precisely will your son, Adewale, finally make his much-anticipated arrival?" Chief Kwame offered a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "In the very near future, Chinyear. His return is imminent." Chinyear nodded with a distinct sense of accomplishment and quiet triumph, turning to her friends with an expression that clearly conveyed, "You see? The moment is almost upon us. My destiny is about to be fulfilled." Yet, inwardly, Aminata remained quietly seated at her place, still listening attentively, still composed and serene. She was not attempting, in any way, to make an impression on anyone present. She was not even entertaining thoughts concerning Chief Kwame's son or the anticipated arrival. All that truly occupied her mind was the work she had to accomplish back at her workstation, the reports and duties awaiting her attention. Chief Kwame raised his hand, a signal that the formal part of the assembly was concluding. This assembly is now officially concluded. Return to your respective duties and resume your important work. But I desire that you all continue to labor diligently and, most importantly, treat one another with respect, courtesy, and kindness. This company thrives on discipline, hard work, and humility, not on arrogance, entitlement, or the abuse of power. As individuals rose from their chairs and began to depart, Chinyere leaned closer to her friend and whispered, a triumphant gleam in her eye, "Observe and witness closely, my dear. I shall be madam very soon now. All these individuals, from managers to custodians, will be compelled to defer to my authority and address me with the respect I deserve." Adewale, however, who stood unobtrusively by the entrance doors as part of the security contingent, a quiet observer in his uniform, overheard every single word she uttered. He maintained an impassive demeanor, his expression carefully neutral, holding the entrance open for everyone to pass through. When Aminata passed, she offered him her usual polite smile, a small, genuine gesture. "Thank you, officer," she said softly. "You are welcome, madam," Adewale replied gently, his voice conveying a subtle warmth. But when Chinyere passed, she tossed her hair dismissively, radiating an air of superiority, and offered no acknowledgement whatsoever. She behaved, as was her custom now, as though he were entirely invisible, a non-entity in her world. Adewale turned slightly and smiled to himself, a private amusement playing on his lips. The main act is just beginning, he thought, anticipating the next phase of his test. The subsequent day at the workplace, everyone was engaged in their usual routines when a large, sleek black vehicle, clearly an executive car, entered the company compound and parked deliberately in the executive parking area reserved for senior management. Two security personnel, trained for such arrivals, hurried forward to open the rear door of the vehicle. A tall, exceptionally attractive gentleman stepped out, his presence immediately commanding attention. He was impeccably dressed in a crisp, well-pressed shirt, dark tailored trousers, and polished footwear that gleamed under the sunlight. His countenance was composed and intelligent, and his voice, when he spoke, was calm and authoritative. He moved with an undeniable air of confidence and refined presence, clearly someone of importance. The staff at the reception area, observing his arrival, regarded him with surprise and a flicker of curiosity. "Good morning," he said with a warm, pleasant smile directed at the receptionists. "I am here to see the staff. I was instructed to report directly to the meeting hall." Soon, a message was disseminated throughout the company once more, reaching every department. "Attention all staff, kindly report to the meeting hall immediately. The new representative appointed by Chief Kwame has arrived and wishes to address you." Everyone hastened into the meeting hall with a mixture of excitement, anticipation, and intense inquisitiveness, eager to see who had been chosen. The attractive gentleman entered the room with a deliberate, measured stride and stood confidently at the front, facing the assembled staff. Silence pervaded the room as everyone awaited his address, their eyes fixed upon him. "Good morning, everyone," he began, his voice clear and pleasant. "My name is Mr. Babatunda. I have been requested by Chief Kwame to represent him and oversee operations during his absence following his retirement. I shall be collaborating closely with each department and all staff members, ensuring that all company operations continue to proceed seamlessly and effectively until the chief's son, Adewale, returns." The staff applauded softly, a polite acknowledgement of his introduction. "I am a staunch advocate of teamwork, mutual respect, and peaceful coexistence within the workplace," Mr. Babatunda added, laying out his operating principles. "Therefore, let us collectively endeavor to elevate this company to even greater prominence and success through collaboration and hard work." Following the brief introduction, he smiled again, a warm and approachable expression, and exited the meeting hall. The instant he departed, Chinyere turned excitedly to her closest friend, her eyes wide with renewed interest, and whispered excitedly, "Ah, behold this gentleman, my dear. So incredibly handsome and radiant, like freshly baked bread emerging warm from the oven." Her friend giggled, catching her infectious enthusiasm. Chinyere, she whispered back teasingly, I was under the distinct impression you were anticipating Chief Kwame's son. Have you perhaps reconsidered your position already, barely moments after meeting this gentleman? Chinyere flipped her hair dismissively, a gesture of nonchalance, and rolled her eyes playfully. Who suggests I cannot entertain two possibilities simultaneously? She rejoined with a confident smirk. Should the chief's son's arrival prove protracted or uncertain, I shall simply make do quite comfortably with Mr. Babatunde for the interim period. He is quite suitable. They both laughed together, sharing a moment of amused conspiracy, but Aminata, who happened to overhear their exchange as she passed, quietly shook her head and departed the room, a look of quiet disappointment on her face. She murmured softly to herself, some individuals, it seems, are truly incapable of change or sincerity. Meanwhile, Adewale had also been observing the scene from his usual position at the rear of the room, a silent witness. He smiled faintly as he noticed the intensity in Chinyere's gaze the moment Mr. Babatunde entered, the immediate shift in her focus. So now she is inclined to pursue Mr. Babatunde as well, Adewale muttered to himself, confirming his suspicions about her motivations. This individual merely shifts direction and focus with the prevailing currents and perceived opportunities. As everyone resumed their tasks and returned to their workstations, Chinyere had already formulated a detailed strategy in her mind. I must contrive a means, she thought with determination, to engage this Mr. Babatunde in conversation, to attract his attention and interest. If the genuine son, the elusive heir, remains out of reach or his arrival is further delayed, this gentleman is equally appealing, undeniably charismatic, and quite possibly possesses significant wealth in his own right. Later that evening, after the workday concluded and the offices gradually emptied, the company compound became quiet, bathed in the fading light. The majority of the staff had already departed for home, eager to end the day. Adewale stood by the entrance gate, ostensibly inspecting the security logbook, feigning a routine task, but his heart was pounding rapidly in his chest with anticipation. For several days now, ever since their first interactions, he had been silently and intently observing Aminata. Her innate kindness, the genuine warmth of her smile, her quiet dignity, her serene demeanor, these qualities had resonated deeply within him, touching his heart in a profound way. I must articulate my feelings to her today, he thought, a sense of urgency compelling him. I can no longer contain these emotions that have grown within me. Just then, he saw her emerging from the building, her steps calm, preparing to leave for home. He rapidly mustered his courage, taking a deep breath, and called out softly, his voice slightly tingled with nervousness. Aminata? She turned, a look of slight surprise on her face, and then smiled warmly upon recognizing him. Yes, officer? Adewale approached closer, making an effort to conceal his apprehension and the rapid beating of his heart. Might I speak with you for merely a few moments if you have the time? He asked, his voice gentle. Aminata paused, considering his request, and then nodded, her expression open and agreeable. Certainly, officer. I have a few moments. They walked together to a quiet corner of the compound, away from any lingering staff, a place where they could speak privately. Adewale gazed into her eyes, his heart full, and finally spoke the words that had been building within him. I am utterly uncertain how to articulate this properly, he began, his voice earnest, but I must speak my truth. Aminata, I hold a profound and genuine affection for you. Indeed, I love you, deeply and sincerely. I am acutely aware that in your eyes, I am merely a simple security attendant, a man of modest means. My worldly possessions may be limited, perhaps non-existent, but my heart, I assure you, is true and entirely yours. I implore you, with all sincerity, would you consent to be my companion, to be my girlfriend? Aminata regarded him silently, her eyes wide with profound surprise at the unexpected confession of love from the quiet security guard. Adewale's heart beat with the intensity of drumbeats, waiting for her response, fearing rejection. But then, something truly remarkable and unexpected transpired. Aminata smiled, a slow, radiant smile that lit up her face. I share your feelings, Adewale, she stated softly, her voice barely above a whisper, confirming his greatest hope. Adewale was utterly astonished, his mind reeling. You do? You share my feelings? He asked, disbelief evident in his voice. Yes, she nodded, her smile deepening. I held affection for you from the initial moment I encountered you, from the first time I saw you diligently performing your duties at the gate, but I awaited you to articulate it first. I wish to avoid appearing overly forward or presumptive. It is traditionally expected, after all, for men to express their sentiments of love first, isn't it? Adewale's countenance broadened into an impossibly wide smile, happiness flooding him. Truly? You have been anticipating and waiting all this time for me to speak. Indeed, Adewale. Aminata laughed shyly, a lovely sound. I even used to position myself discreetly by the window near my workstation and observe you from afar. I admired the manner in which you conducted yourself at the entrance, always earnest in your work, always courteous and respectful to everyone who passed. Adewale laughed, a sound of pure joy and surprise. And here I was, convinced I was merely occupying time without any purpose or impact, simply performing my duty anonymously. But Aminata, still smiling, added, there exists, however, one minor complication that we should address. Adewale's smile faded slightly, a flicker of concern crossing his face. Yes, I am aware of what you might be concerned about. What about Chief Kwame-san? Should he ascertain or discover our relationship, particularly given his expected return and the potential context, he may disapprove strongly, and it could potentially result in our dismissal from employment. Aminata looked directly into his eyes, her gaze steady and filled with conviction, and stated firmly, Adewale, that is of no concern whatsoever to me. Adewale blinked, surprised by the strength of her assertion. It is not a concern? No, it is not, she affirmed, her voice resolute. Should we forfeit our positions here because of our genuine affection for one another, we can secure alternative employment elsewhere. Finding gainful work is possible with effort and skill. However, discovering genuine, true affection, a love that transcends circumstances and expectations, is not a facile or common endeavor. It is a rare and precious gift. I do not wish to discard this possibility, this connection we share, for the sake of a job that can be replaced. Adewale's heart was deeply moved by the sincerity and depth of her feelings, her willingness to prioritize their connection over material security. Aminata continued, explaining her feelings further. You do not conduct yourself like many other men I have encountered. You are tranquil, respectful, humble, and genuinely kind. You instill within me a profound sense of security and trust. That, more than anything else, is my desire in a companion, a feeling of safety and genuine connection. Adewale stepped closer, drawn by her words, and gently clasped her hands in his. Thank you for accepting me, Aminata. Thank you for seeing me. You are truly unaware of the extent of my happiness at this very juncture, receiving your acceptance. Aminata smiled, a radiant expression of shared joy. But there is one condition we must agree upon. What might that be? Adewale asked, eager to agree to anything she requested. Let us maintain the privacy of this relationship for the time being, at least for the present, while things are still unfolding here, she stated, her voice lowering slightly. The workplace, as you well know, is rife with individuals prone to gossip and speculation, particularly that individual, Chinyer. Should she become aware of our connection, she will undoubtedly disrupt everything and create unnecessary complications. Adewale laughed softly, acknowledging the truth of her assessment. You are absolutely correct, Aminata. We shall keep it strictly between us, our own private happiness. Aminata nodded, emphasizing the point. Promise me you will not disclose it to anyone else as yet. I pledge, Aminata, Adewale affirmed, raising his hand slightly in a gesture of solemn promise. It is solely you and I, our secret, our bond. They both laughed softly together, a shared moment of understanding and intimacy, and began to walk slowly towards the entrance gate, their hands still clasped briefly. Aminata turned and regarded him again before parting ways, a lingering question in her eyes. So, Adewale, are we formally in a relationship now? Is this the beginning? Adewale grinned widely, his happiness overflowing. Indeed, Aminata, we are. And trust me, this is merely the commencement of something truly wonderful. Aminata smiled back, her heart full. I am prepared for whatever comes, Adewale. I am ready. As she walked away, turning to head home, Adewale remained standing there for a long moment, a smile gracing his face, the kind of smile worn by someone who had just secured a colossal and invaluable fortune, far greater than any material wealth. She consented, he thought, still amazed. She actually consented to be with me. 2 weeks subsequently, circumstances within the Kwame group had subtly undergone a transformation, though no one openly acknowledged the shift. Aminata and Adewale were now formally united by a clandestine affection, a secret bond shared only between them. Each time Aminata passed the security station at the entrance, performing her daily routine, Adewale's face would illuminate with quiet pleasure, a subtle change only she would notice. They exchanged covert smiles, shared swift, knowing glances across crowded rooms, and even transmitted brief, handwritten notes when they were absolutely certain no one was observing their discreet communication. They exercised extreme caution in their interactions, meticulously so, to protect their nascent relationship from the prying eyes and gossiping tongues of the workplace. Adewale felt like the most fortunate man alive, having found the genuine connection he sought. However, while authentic affection blossomed discreetly between Adewale and Aminata, something else, something less honorable and far more calculating, was also unfolding concurrently within the company walls. Chinyere, the very individual who was confidently anticipating being courted by and potentially marrying the son of Chief Kwame, had now found herself deeply and strategically enmeshed with Mr. Babatunde, the newly appointed temporary company representative, the interim leader. It had commenced subtly, with seemingly incidental commendations and casual interactions. Mr. Babatunde, I must say, I find your footwear admirable and incredibly stylish, Chinyere would remark with her most convincing, artificial smile, designed to flatter and gain favor. Thank you, Miss Chinyere, he would reply courteously, maintaining a professional distance while remaining receptive. Subsequently, she escalated her efforts, beginning to present him with freshly brewed coffee in the morning, a seemingly thoughtful gesture simply to facilitate the commencement of his workday and create an opportunity for interaction. Before long, she was making a point of frequenting his office each afternoon, ostensibly to ascertain if he required anything, offering assistance and companionship. And on a particular pivotal day, Babatunde, following the instructions given to him, did not dissuade her presence or efforts. That evening, Chinyere informed her closest friend with a distinct sense of triumph and accomplishment, her voice filled with pride. My dear friend, Babatunde and I now share a confidential and very advantageous arrangement. Her friend's jaw dropped in surprise at the sudden declaration. What? Chinyere, are you serious? But what of the son of Chief Kwame? The heir you have been pursuing so openly? Chinyere rolled her eyes dismissively, brushing aside the concern as irrelevant. Pray, I have not even encountered that individual, have I? I am even ignorant of his actual appearance, or when, or if he will truly arrive. This Babatunde, who is currently within my tangible grasp and available, is agreeable, undeniably astute, and appears to be quite affluent in his own right. Should I encounter the chief's son at a later juncture, I shall simply endeavor to manage both situations simultaneously and see which proves more beneficial. Chinyere, that is quite improper behavior, her friend whispered with a genuine tone of concern, taken aback by her casual dismissal of conventional morality. My dear friend, who is genuinely concerned with propriety in the pursuit of fortune? Chinyere rejoined, her voice hardening with determination. My sole objective, my primary focus, is to establish myself securely within a household of significant means and influence. I am far too refined and ambitious to endure hardship or struggle in this existence. What Chinyere remained completely unaware of, blinded by her own ambition and perceived cleverness, was that Mr. Babatunde was not easily deceived by her machinations. He too was observing her with discernment, assessing her true character and motivations. He did not genuinely repose trust or affection in her, but he was accommodating her advances and allowing her pretense to continue because he was acting directly under the specific directives and guidance of both Chief Kwame and Adewale, playing his assigned role in their elaborate test. Chinyere began to experience a sense of unease, a nagging suspicion growing in her mind. Every instant she observed Aminata passing the entrance gate, she noticed the consistent, kind smile Aminata directed towards the simple security attendant, Adewale. One afternoon, unable to shake the feeling, Chinyere positioned herself discreetly by a window overlooking the entrance and observed intently, scrutinizing their brief interactions. Why does she perpetually smile at that common security attendant? She mused to herself, a frown creasing her brow. Is some covert activity or secret relationship perhaps transpiring between them, something I am unaware of? That evening, driven by her suspicion, she reiterated her earlier directive to the cleaning staff member, who was her associate and confidant, her voice low and conspiratorial. I wish for you, my dear, to discreetly follow that security attendant when he leaves work. I possess a lingering sense of unease about him, a feeling that something is amiss. There is something unusual or hidden about him, and I must uncover its true nature. But, madam, the cleaning attendant replied nervously, her eyes wide with apprehension. What if he detects my surveillance? What if he catches me following him? Chinyere hissed, her impatience evident. Do not be pusillanimous or fearful. Do you desire financial recompense and continued favor, or not? Yes, madam, I do. Then pursue him quietly and diligently, and report his every action, his every movement, directly to me the following day. The cleaning attendant nodded rapidly, fear overcoming her hesitation. Yes, madam. I shall comply with your instructions. She waited patiently for the opportune moment, the right circumstances to initiate her surveillance. Then, one evening after the cessation of work activities, when the majority of individuals had departed for home and the compound was quiet, she discreetly followed Adewale, ensuring she remained unseen and undetected in the gathering twilight. She concealed herself carefully behind a low structure near the rear entrance, a vantage point that offered concealment while allowing her to observe. It was then, from her hidden position, that she witnessed the unexpected and damning sight. Adewale and Aminata stood in close proximity, conversing softly, their heads close together, and then they shared a tender kiss, a clear indication of their intimate connection. The cleaning attendant gasped audibly, unable to suppress her surprise. She promptly covered her mouth with her hand, retreated swiftly and silently back into the building, and departed the premises without being detected by either Adewale or Aminata, her mind reeling with the shocking revelation. The ensuing morning, Chinyere was already anticipating her arrival at the office, eager to receive her report. So, Chinyere inquired the moment the cleaning attendant appeared, her voice sharp with anticipation. Did you observe anything of note yesterday evening? Anything unusual or revealing? The attendant glanced around furtively, ensuring no one else could overhear, then whispered, her voice trembling slightly with the magnitude of the secret she held. Madam, I witnessed something of considerable significance and importance. Chinyere leaned closer, her eyes narrowing with intense interest.
Speak, then.
What did you see? I observed that security gentleman, the one you asked me to follow, engaged in a kiss with Aminata, madam. It happened behind the structure near the gate yesterday evening. Chinyere sprang from her seat in disbelief and fury. What? You witnessed them kissing? With your own eyes? Indeed, madam, the attendant affirmed, nodding emphatically. With my very own eyes. They are maintaining a clandestine relationship, a secret affair. Chinyere's countenance flushed crimson with indignation and rage. I knew it, she thought furiously. That contemptible individual, Aminata, has been cultivating an air of false innocence all along, hiding her true intentions. And that young man, the security guard, he fancies himself incredibly clever, deceiving everyone. The cleaning attendant nodded in eager agreement, sharing Chinyere's outrage. Madam, it is absolutely imperative that you report this shocking discovery to Chief Kwame without delay. Aminata must be dismissed from employment for this inappropriate conduct. And that security gentleman also. I harbored deep antipathy towards both of them now. Chinyere stood, pacing the confines of the room, her mind racing with how best to use this information. Yes, she stated, a malevolent plan forming. I shall certainly report them both. In fact, I shall proceed directly to the chief's residence today, this very day. I shall apprise him of every sordid detail of their secret, inappropriate relationship. She turned to the cleaning attendant, issuing a final, stern instruction. Divulge what you witnessed to no other soul. Do you understand? This information is strictly confidential until I have acted. I shall not, madam, the attendant promised rapidly, her lips sealed. My lips are sealed. Chinyer smiled malevolently, a cruel expression of anticipated triumph. Excellent. Very shortly now, those two individuals will find themselves completely devoid of employment, exposed and disgraced. Later that day at the workplace, Aminata was situated quietly in the personnel division office, organizing documentation and performing her duties, when Chinyer stormed in with the ferocious energy of a predatory feline, her anger barely contained. She slammed the entrance door shut behind her, making a dramatic entrance, and pointed an accusing finger directly at Aminata, her voice loud and accusatory. I have finally apprehended you, Aminata, she declared loudly, confronting her rival. Aminata calmly raised her gaze from her work, her expression serene and unperturbed. What is the matter this time, Chinyer? What is the source of this outburst? Chinyer laughed harshly, a sound devoid of humor, and folded her arms triumphantly across her chest. I am privy to your clandestine activity. Your little secret. I am aware that you are engaged in a relationship, a secret affair, with that impoverished security attendant at the gate. Do not attempt to disavow it or feign ignorance. I witnessed you two engaged in a kiss behind the structure yesterday evening. Aminata raised one eyebrow calmly, her composure unwavering despite the public accusation. And if that is indeed the case, Chinyer, what then? Chinyer's eyes widened in astonished disbelief at Aminata's calm admission and defiance. And if that is the case, she exclaimed, her voice rising in indignation, I shall relate every single detail of your inappropriate conduct and secret affair to Chief Kwame. You shall face immediate dismissal from employment for your indiscretion and your relationship with a lowly guard, and that worthless companion of yours, that security attendant, shall be expelled from the premises like an unwanted animal. Aminata gently set down her writing implement, her movements deliberate and calm, and slowly rose from her chair, facing Chinyer directly. Chinyer, she stated, her voice steady and firm, utterly devoid of fear, I am not intimidated by your threats or your attempts to manipulate the situation. Indeed, should you choose to convey this information regarding my private life to Chief Kwame, I shall likewise articulate certain matters of my own regarding your conduct. Chinyer recoiled slightly, surprised by Aminata's unexpected counterthreat and her apparent knowledge. What is the import of that statement, Aminata? What do you know? I am fully aware, Chinyer, of your clandestine and inappropriate association with Mr. Babatunda, the interim representative, Aminata declared with unwavering intrepidity, her gaze piercing. I have observed the manner in which you surreptitiously enter his office and deliberately secure the entrance behind you. Furthermore, I have been reliably apprised of your nocturnal departures from his dwelling, leaving under the cover of darkness, when you mistakenly believe no one is observing your actions. Chinyer's mouth fell open in utter astonishment and shock at being exposed. Aminata continued, pressing her advantage. Therefore, proceed if you wish. Chinyer, report me to the chief about my private relationship, and I shall reciprocate instantly by reporting your clandestine activities with Mr. Babatunda. Let us ascertain, in that scenario, who Chief Kwame deems worthy of dismissal first, the individual pursuing a genuine relationship or the one engaging in a secret affair with the representative. Chinyer hissed loudly, a sound of pure venomous rage, her plan backfiring spectacularly. You will refrain from taking any action against me. You are merely an individual lacking in substance or ambition, cloaking yourself in feigned humility to appear virtuous. When I am formally wed to the chief's son, you and that common companion of yours, tainted by the odor of poverty and low station, shall be eradicated from this company. Utterly finished and removed. Aminata laughed, a clear, confident sound, undaunted by the threat. You and this anticipated marriage to the chief's son, Chinyer, this grand destiny that has yet to materialize. It exists, at present, solely within the confines of your ambitious imagination. Chinyer's voice escalated in volume, becoming shrill with fury. You are involved with a gate attendant, a non-entity, a nobody. Observe yourself, Aminata. You fancy yourself clever or virtuous in your choice. You will come to rue this disgraceful association with a common laborer. Aminata stood calmly, her arms folded across her chest, radiating an inner strength that infuriated Chinyer. Then she spoke, her voice clear and measured, delivering a cutting piece of counsel. "Allow me to impart to you a piece of valuable advice, Chinyer. An animal that simultaneously pursues two separate objectives will ultimately secure neither. You are diligently pursuing both Mr. Babatunde and the perceived opportunity with the chief's son, dividing your focus and intent. One day, through your manipulative actions, both will likely abandon you, leaving you with utterly empty hands and a heart consumed by sorrow and regret." Chinyer's lips trembled with uncontrollable fury at the accuracy of the observation and the perceived insult. Aminata advanced closer, her expression serious. "Do you, for a moment, harbor the notion that I am ashamed of Adewale, of the man I have chosen to be with? That individual possesses more astuteness, more integrity, and more inherent worth than all the individuals of feigned wealth and empty status combined. I harbor no interest whatsoever in the chief's son, not in the way you imagine." To validate her assertion and further dismantle Chinyer's expectations, she retrieved her communication device from her pocket, initiated a call, and activated the hands-free mode, allowing Chinyer to hear the conversation. "Greetings, sir. Good afternoon," Aminata stated respectfully into the device, addressing the chief directly. Chief Kwame's voice emanated calmly from the device, clear and recognizable. "Aminata, good afternoon to you. How are your circumstances today?" "I am well, sir," she replied. "I have contacted you respectfully to inform you directly that I no longer maintain any interest in the prospect of a potential relationship with your son. I have found another individual, someone with whom I have formed a deep connection. I am deeply and genuinely in love with Adewale." Silence lingered on the line for a significant moment, a pause filled with unspoken understanding. Then, Chief Kwame calmly responded, his voice betraying no surprise. "That is entirely acceptable, my dear. I appreciate your candor and your honesty. I would be pleased to have you visit my residence this weekend, perhaps on Saturday." Aminata smiled, a genuine expression of pleasure. "Thank you for your understanding and kindness, sir. I shall indeed be present as requested." The communication concluded. Chinyer remained immobilized by astonishment, her eyes wide with disbelief. You actually contacted him? You told the chief about your relationship with a security guard?" Aminata nodded calmly, confirming her action. "Indeed. I do not engage in concealment or manipulation, unlike certain other individuals who operate with deceit and secrecy." At that exact moment, Chinyer's communication device emitted a ringtone. She answered it promptly upon observing Chief Kwame's appellation displayed prominently on the screen, her mind still reeling but her ambition reignited by the possibility that her turn had come. She responded quickly, her voice shifting instantly to a saccharine tone. "Greetings, sir. Good afternoon." The chief's familiar voice resonated from her device. "Chinyer, I too would like you to visit my residence this weekend, perhaps on Saturday as well." Chinyer nearly leaped in exhilaration and triumphant anticipation. "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I shall be there without fail." She terminated the communication, her heart pounding with excitement, and briefly moved jubilantly in place, a small, triumphant dance. Yes, she thought, her mind racing, finally. The chief's son, my intended spouse, has returned home, and the time has come. I anticipate eagerly the prospect of uniting with him and, just as importantly, addressing the matter of you, Aminata, and your pathetic gait attendant companion. Aminata, observing her reaction, laughed softly and stated, her voice laced with quiet irony, "Chinyer, you are so consumed by your own ambition that you are unaware you are being invited, quite deliberately, to witness your own humiliation and the spectacular collapse of your illusions." Chinyer hissed defiantly, her earlier shock replaced by renewed arrogance. "Observe and see, Aminata. Observe and witness my triumph." Aminata shook her head slowly, a look of pity on her face, and delivered the conclusive and most cutting statement. "You, Chinyer, an offspring of dubious lineage and questionable character. Do you suppose for a moment that I am unacquainted with your true history, the circumstances of your birth? How your mother shamefully conceived a child with another individual while yet bound in lawful wedlock to your father. That very essence, that lack of integrity and disregard for truth, courses through your veins, informing your character. It is precisely why you can simultaneously pursue two different individuals with manipulative intent and yet fabricate truths with such a profound sense of self-righteous pride. Chinyere shrieked, her face contorted with shame and fury, unable to bear the public exposure of her past. Desist. Stop speaking, you offspring of no distinction. You know nothing. But Aminata remained composed, her words unwavering. Allow me to offer you one final allegorical statement. Chinyere, a piece of wisdom you would do well to heed. And Simeon, a monkey that believes itself more astute and clever than the hunter who lays traps will one day, inevitably, find itself captured and placed within the hunter's preparation pot. You ascended too high on your own arrogance and deceit, Chinyere, and consequently, you have set yourself up for a fall. Chinyere stood there, trembling uncontrollably, her countenance a panorama of shame, uncontained fury, and the dawning realization of her impending failure. The line of engagement, the point of no return, had been definitively drawn between the two women, but only one individual would depart that upcoming weekend with an air of triumph and happiness. Saturday morning arrived, bathed in sunlight, at Chief Kwame's expansive and opulent dwelling. Within the spacious reception area, a room designed for comfort and receiving esteemed guests, Chief Kwame occupied his armchair, attired in dignified traditional white garments and a crimson cap, the symbols of his status. A glass of freshly extracted juice was positioned on the table beside him, readily available. He appeared relaxed, yet an unmistakable air of anticipation surrounded him, a sense that something significant was about to occur. Beside him sat his only son, Adewale, though not, this day, in a simple security uniform. He was clad in exquisite, finely tailored attire, a crisp, well-pressed shirt, dark trousers, and polished footwear that gleamed with a high shine. A subtle golden wrist adornment was visible on his wrist. He exuded the aura of a true gentleman, confident and composed. He smiled at his father, acknowledging the shared moment. "Today is the designated day, father," he remarked, a quiet anticipation in his voice. Chief Kwame nodded, a smile of deep paternal pride creasing his face. "Indeed, my son. Today, veracity shall declare itself, and truth shall prevail." A few moments later, the main entrance doors opened, and Aminata arrived, her presence radiating a quiet grace. She was attired in a simple, yet elegant and tasteful gown, chosen for its modesty and beauty. Her intrinsic attractiveness radiated naturally, without excessive cosmetic enhancement or artificial adornment. She moved with effortless elegance, embodying tranquility and calm dignity with every step she took towards the reception area. An attendant discreetly opened the entrance door for her and conducted her respectfully into the reception area, where the chief and his son awaited. "Good afternoon, sir," she greeted with a respectful inclination of her head, her voice soft and polite. Chief Kwame rose from his chair and embraced her warmly, a gesture of genuine welcome and affection. "Aminata, my dear daughter, you are most welcome in our home." Adewale also rose, stepping forward, a warm smile on his face. "Greetings, Aminata. You have arrived just as expected." Aminata turned towards the man speaking, and her eyes widened in profound astonishment, her breath catching in her throat. "Adewale," she whispered, barely audible, recognizing the face but utterly disoriented by his appearance. She gazed upon his costly apparel, his refined bearing, his polished footwear, the image of wealth and status. He bore absolutely no resemblance to the simple, unassuming security attendant she had known for the past few weeks. He appeared, instead, as though he had stepped directly from the pages of a glossy fashion publication, the epitome of wealth and sophistication. What is transpiring here?" she inquired, utterly bewildered by the sudden and dramatic transformation. Chief Kwame smiled, a gentle, understanding expression. "Aminata, my dear, permit me the honor and pleasure of formally introducing my son, Dr. Adewale Kwame." "Yes, the very same individual you knew, for a brief time, as the unassuming security guard diligently working at the gate." Aminata covered her mouth with her hand, overcome with shock, profound surprise, and the dawning realization of the truth. "You mean all this time? The security guard, you were the chief's son?" The air, Adewale advanced closer, closing the small distance between them, and gently took her hands in his gaze filled with warmth and sincerity. Indeed, Aminata. It was a test, a necessity for my heart. I needed to ascertain who would cherish me, the person, irrespective of my financial status or perceived social standing. And Aminata, you cherished me precisely as I was, the simple security guard, showing kindness and respect when others showed disdain. Tears welled instantly in Aminata's eyes, but they were not tears of confusion or sadness. They were tears of overwhelming joy, understanding, and profound gratitude. I am utterly at a loss for words, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I am profoundly grateful, Adewale, that I adhered to the dictates of my heart, that I saw the goodness in you regardless of your apparent station. Chief Kwame smiled broadly, his countenance radiating deep paternal pride and satisfaction. You have successfully navigated the assessment, my dear Aminata. You have proven the authenticity of your character. Abruptly, the sound of prominent, rapid heels echoed loudly through the hallway leading to the reception area, announcing another arrival. The principal entrance doors opened wide, and Chinyere entered, clad in a vibrant crimson garment that was perhaps tighter than her considerable pride, chosen to attract maximum attention. Her prominent golden earrings nearly brushed her shoulders with each movement. Her facial cosmetics appeared as though applied with the broad strokes of a brush, dramatic and heavy. She entered with a self-conscious, queenly bearing, swaying her form from side to side, attempting to project an image of effortless elegance. Good afternoon, dearest father, she stated in a saccharine, overly sweet tone, directing her greeting towards Chief Kwame, assuming the role of the perfect daughter-in-law. Chief Kwame managed a constrained, polite smile, his expression carefully neutral. Welcome, Chinyere. Pray do take a seat and make yourself comfortable. Chinyere seated herself confidently, crossing her legs dramatically as if she already possessed ownership of the dwelling and its contents. Her gaze swept across the room, assessing the surroundings and the other occupants. Then she beheld Adewale, fully visible to her now. She froze, her confident smile instantly contorted into a harsh frown of confusion and disapproval. What? She exclaimed, her voice sharp and accusatory, indicating Adewale with a dismissive gesture. Is this disheveled security attendant doing in this location? Here, in your private residence? Who provided him with respectable attire? Is this intended as some kind of crude jest? Adewale regarded her calmly, an enigmatic smile playing on his lips. It is agreeable to see you as well, Chinyere, he responded, his voice even. She rose quickly from her seat, unable to contain her agitation, and addressed Chief Kwame directly, demanding an explanation. Sir, what events are transpiring here? Why is this individual, this common gate attendant, seated in your residence as though he holds a position of importance or belongs here? Chief Kwame smiled without offering a verbal response, allowing the situation to unfold. Chinyere turned back to Adewale, her confusion escalating into suspicion. What is the reason for your attire? Who furnished you with all these respectable garments? Do not suggest you are endeavoring to impress the chief in hopes of securing improved employment or a promotion. That is pathetic. Aminata, seated quietly nearby, folded her arms and smiled subtly, a private amusement playing on her face. The unfolding events, the dramatic reveal, were proving to be quite entertaining and perfectly illustrative of Chinyere's character. Chinyere emitted a sound of deep displeasure and once again addressed the chief, demanding resolution. Sir, I have come here specifically and solely to finally meet your son, Adewale. I am prepared, as we discussed, to undertake the role of a spouse and future madam of this company. Kindly direct this security individual to depart immediately. His presence here is entirely detrimental to the atmosphere and my purpose. Adewale rose from his seat, his movement calm and deliberate, drawing Chinyere's attention. You express a desire to meet the son of Chief Kwame? He inquired, his voice smooth and controlled. Chinyere nodded emphatically, her focus entirely on the perceived goal. Yes, that is the sole and exclusive purpose of my presence here today. Adewale took a single step forward, standing fully before her, revealing his presence and identity. Then, Chinyere, he stated clearly, his voice resonant with the weight of the moment, permit me the courtesy of formally introducing myself. I am Dr. Adewale Kwame, the singular and beloved son of Chief Kwame. I am the very individual upon whom you heaped insults, whom you treated with disdain and contempt, whom you ridiculed and dismissed as worthless. I am the simple security guard. Chinyeer's handbag, clutched tightly in her hand, slipped from her grasp and fell with a soft thud to the polished floor. She stepped back slowly, a look of utter horror and disbelief contorting her face, her mouth agape in stunned silence.
What?
You? That is utterly and completely inconceivable. It cannot be true. It is entirely conceivable, Chinyeer, Aminata stated calmly from her seat, her voice gentle but firm, confirming the reality of the situation. You have now, in this very moment, witnessed the authentic countenance and true identity of the individual you so cruelly described as unclean, worthless, and insignificant. Chinyeer turned desperately to Chief Kwame, pleading for him to deny the truth unfolding before her. Sir, I implore you to tell me he is fabricating the truth, that this is some cruel prank. Chief Kwame stood from his chair, his presence commanding authority. He is not fabricating, Chinyeer. Every word he speaks is the truth. That is my son, Adewale. You have unequivocally failed the assessment, Chinyeer. You have failed the test of character. Chinyeer's eyes filled instantly with tears, not of remorse, but of a sense of impending dread and the shattering of her ambitious plans. Please, sir, I was unaware. Had I possessed the knowledge of who he truly was? That encapsulates the core issue of your failure, Adewale interjected, his voice firm and unforgiving. You accord respect, kindness, and consideration to individuals solely when you are specifically apprised of their financial standing, their social position, or their perceived power. You never evinced genuine concern for the inner self, the character of the person, only for the monetary repository you believed they represented. Chief Kwame added, his voice filled with disappointment. You subjected my son to verbal abuse, uttered blatant falsehoods directly to my face in my own office, and even spoke disparagingly and disrespectfully of my late, beloved wife, his mother. You are wholly and utterly unfit to become a part of this familial unit, to join our family. Chinyeer sank to her knees on the polished floor, weeping dramatically, crawling closer in a desperate plea. Please, sir, Chief Kwame, grant me your pardon. Please, Adewale, grant me just one more opportunity to prove myself. Adewale regarded her with a stern expression. No, he stated firmly, his voice resolute. This marks the definitive conclusion of your strategy, your performance, and your opportunity. Chief Kwame, signaling the end of the audience, summoned a guard from the corridor outside. Conduct her to the entrance, he instructed the guard calmly. As the guard escorted her out, Chinyeer, her face a mask of fury and despair, turned back and shrieked at Aminata, unable to accept her own failure. Aminata, you sorceress. You manipulative woman. You have deliberately purloined him from me through your cunning and false humility. Aminata laughed softly, a sound of quiet triumph, delivering the final, cutting blow. Nay, Chinyeer, I did not purloin him from you. You forfeited him entirely and irrevocably through your own arrogant actions and the revelation of your true, unpleasant character. Then she added calmly, echoing her earlier warning, an unthinking avian, a bird that soars without guidance or wisdom will ultimately alight, inevitably, in the hunter's cooking vessel. You ascended too high on your own hubris, Chinyeer, and consequently, you have fallen spectacularly. Chinyeer departed the dwelling tempestuously, vanquished, humiliated, and utterly disheartened, her ambitious dreams shattered. Within the dwelling, tranquility was restored, the tense atmosphere dissipating. Chief Kwame turned to Aminata, a warm smile on his face, embracing her as a cherished member of his family. My daughter, welcome warmly into our lineage. You have found your place. Adewale held her hand firmly in his gaze filled with love. It is you, Aminata, and only you, whom I choose for eternity, for my life. 1 week subsequently, Chief Kwame's expansive dwelling and its surrounding grounds were adorned with shimmering luminaries, melodic musical renditions, and beautiful floral arrangements, creating an atmosphere of joy and celebration. Esteemed associates, employees, and familial members convened beneath a decorated covering on the grounds. It was not a formal wedding ceremony as yet, though that would come later. It was, instead, a surprise proposition of marriage, orchestrated by Adewale. Aminata remained unaware of the true purpose of the gathering, believing she was merely attending a modest social gathering hosted by the chief. But as she entered the cultivated grounds, she observed everyone standing, their faces turned towards a central point. The illumination softened, casting a warm glow, and gentle, romantic melody commenced, played by unseen musicians. Then Adewale emerged, stepping into the soft light, holding a vocal amplification device in his hand, his presence commanding. He appeared remarkably attractive and distinguished in his dark formal wear, a single perfect bloom held in his other hand, symbolizing his affection. "Aminata," he began, his voice soft but carrying, addressing her directly, a warm smile on his face. "On the day I first encountered you, I served as a simple attendant at the entrance gate of my father's company. Yet, despite my apparent low station, you treated me with the dignity and respect befitting royalty, acknowledging my presence and worth." He approached closer, his gaze fixed solely on her. "You accorded me respect when others offered disdain. You smiled upon me with genuine kindness. You even provided me with chilled refreshment on a day of intense heat, a simple act of compassion. You discerned my inner character, the man I truly was, before you were ever aware of my identity or my status. And it is for that very reason today, before all these witnesses, before my family and our friends," he knelt gracefully upon one knee on the soft grass and presented a small, velvet receptacle, opening it to reveal a sparkling ring. "I wish to solicit your consent and your heart. Will you consent to be my wife, Aminata? Will you marry me?" Tears instantly inundated Aminata's eyes, overflowing with emotion. She covered her mouth with her hands, trembling slightly with the magnitude of the moment, then exclaimed, her voice filled with overwhelming joy, "Yes. Oh, yes, Adewale. 1,000 times yes." A spontaneous chorus of applause, cheering, and heartfelt acclamation erupted from all present, celebrating the genuine connection and the unexpected, romantic proposal. Adewale rose, his face radiant with happiness, affixed the sparkling circlet upon her finger, a symbol of their commitment, and embraced her tightly, holding her close. Chief Kwame smiled with profound paternal pride and satisfaction, his heart full. "That," he murmured softly to those near him, "is my son. He chose wisely and truly." 3 months subsequently, the preeminent and most anticipated matrimonial celebration of the year transpired in the capital city, a magnificent occasion befitting the union of the Kwame heir. Aminata and Adewale stood before the divine, their associates, and their familial circle, exchanging their solemn pledges of love and commitment, vowing to build a future together. It was a magnificent and joyous occasion, replete with mirth, abundant tears of profound happiness shed by those witnessing the union, and fervent commendations and blessings bestowed upon the happy couple. Chinyere, the individual in question, attempted, fueled by her bitterness and resentment, to intrude upon the nuptial proceedings, arriving at the venue clad in dark spectacles and feigning an air of casual friendliness, hoping to slip past unnoticed. But Chief Kwame's vigilant security personnel, having been instructed to look out for her, intercepted her immediately at the entrance gates. "Madam," they stated politely but firmly, blocking her path, "you are not amongst the invited guests on the list." She withdrew in disgrace, recognizing that she had irrevocably forfeited the most advantageous opportunity she had never truly appreciated or deserved. 1 year subsequently, Adewale and Aminata welcomed their first progeny into the world, a healthy and beloved male infant. They bestowed upon him the appellation David, signifying beloved, a testament to the love that brought them together. Aminata now oversaw operations at one of the company's successful divisions, managing it with competence and grace. She was accorded respect, genuine affection, and recognition by her colleagues and subordinates, having earned their admiration through her character. Regarding Chinyere, her fate unfolded tragically as a consequence of her choices. She subsequently ascertained she was carrying a child by Mr. Babatunda, the very interim workplace representative with whom she had maintained a clandestine, purely transactional intimate relationship while simultaneously feigning interest in and pursuing Chief Kwame's son. When, desperate and alone, she presented herself at his dwelling to convey the information about her pregnancy and seek his support, the attendant at the entrance, who had changed since her visits, stated simply, "Madam, I regret to inform you, but Mr. Babatunda no longer resides here. He relocated overseas, permanently, several months ago with his spouse and children. He has gone back to his family." Chinyere remained standing there, paralyzed by the devastating news, her world collapsing around her. Her respiration became shallow and rapid. Her hands trembled uncontrollably as the full weight of her situation crashed down upon her. She departed from the gates, tears streaming from her eyes, the bitter reality confronting her. No employment, having been dismissed after the reveal. No companion, having lost both men through her deceit. No resources, having prioritized wealth over character. And now, an infant soon to arrive, without support. She seated herself in isolation by the roadside, a solitary figure burdened by regret, murmuring softly to herself, the words barely audible. "An incredible opportunity was presented to me, a chance for genuine happiness and security. I squandered it entirely through my own greed and arrogance. Now, I possess absolutely nothing of value." It was irreparably late. All that remained to her was profound, consuming remorse and the harsh consequences of her own actions. Esteemed audience, what profound insights or valuable lessons have you gleaned from this compelling narrative, this modern fable of love, deceit, and consequence? We would be absolutely delighted to receive and reflect upon your thoughts and reflections in the section below designated for commentary. Should you have found the story enjoyable, thought-provoking, or enlightening, please signify your approval by leaving a like, share it with your acquaintances, friends, and family, and be sure to subscribe to the channel to support our work. Ensure you activate the notifications bell to remain apprised of our most recent contributions and stories. We express our sincere gratitude for your viewership and extend heartfelt wishes for your continued blessings and well-being.